In this video I will talk about some shows from the winter season 2018 in some more detail. Overview was given in this video about the shows, and now this video is basically like a more detailed impression on these shows after approximately half the season. Okay, let's start off with Karakai Jouzu no Takagi-san. It's about the titular Takagi, the girl on the right, who loves to tease and mess around with Nishikata, the boy on the left, who constantly tries to get back at her, usually without success. So basically a rom-com-like slice of life show. 12 episodes. Studio is Shinei Animation, who did shows like Tonari no Seki-kun, Denkigai no Honya-san, but also Crayon Shin-chan. The pattern is often the same. The boy thinks, damn you Takagi, today is the day I get my revenge. This prank's gonna work. There's no way this can go wrong. Instead of a prank, sometimes it's also a game or bet they do. Anyway, he then tries, attempts to execute his supposedly perfect plan, but Takagi is clever and confuses him completely with words and, surprise surprise, he fails. Instead, Takagi comes up with something on her own, Nishikata is too stupid to notice and completely falls for it. And Takagi laughs her ass off. And Nishikata is frustrated and be like, grr, damn you Takagi, all over again. Sometimes Takagi actually gives him a good chance to win the game, usually involving something slightly romantic, but then he is like, whoa, I can't do that, that's so embarrassing, I'm a boy, can't do that with a girl, and loses the perfect chance to actually get back at her, and Takagi again laughs her ass off. And this pattern repeats a lot, which is also my biggest problem with the show. It is heavily hinted that she kind of likes him, and he is also sort of interested in her, but it never really goes anywhere. There is no romantic or otherwise progress in this series. There is actually a spin-off manga where both of them are grown up, are married and have a child. The mangaka is different though. Actually there was a contest about who can draw the best spin-off manga for the original manga, and that entry was among the winners and got serialized, so it's at least half canon. Interesting point is, even in the spin-off not much changes. It's still about her teasing him, who is now her husband. Not much romance involved, even though they are married. And this is what makes the show a little boring. It's a cute show, the main two characters' interactions are fun to watch, the art style is well adapted from the manga, but the status quo between the two main characters always stays the same, and it does feel a little repetitive after a few episodes, even though the base idea is actually different from regular shows like this and thus refreshing. Sometimes in the show there are small slice of life segments or skits involving these three side characters doing stupid stuff, which provides a welcome change from the usual pattern. The middle girl especially is quite an adorable idiot. All in all, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I'd say the show is nothing great, but rather okay or maybe good, in my opinion. It can be still a lot of fun to watch, so if you in general like rom-coms and don't mind a lack of progress, give it a try. The probably most popular show on this list next is Darling in the Franxx. It is essentially a mecha show where teenagers fight in robots against weird enemies. 24 episodes, so the show will not need to rush, which is good. The studios involved are two big names. First, A1 Pictures, famous for a lot of mediocre to bad shows like Sword Art Online, Fairy Tail, Shigatsu something, Bokudake something, this Asterisk show, but they actually have some good shows too, like Anohana and Shinsekai Yori. And the second studio is Trigger, founded by former members of the studio Gainax, and these former members were involved with crazy over-the-top mecha shows like Die Buster and Gurren Lagann, and now with this new studio Trigger, they are known for shows like Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, Kiznaiver, and wacky comedy shorts like Inferno Cop. The story plays in the future. We maybe have even some kind of post-apocalyptic scenario, I don't really know. Anyway, people live here in mobile fortresses called plantations, and the society is separated in adults who do the politics and the so-called children who fight against humanity's threat, the Kyoryu, which are some kind of robots which act like animals, something like that. The mechas the kids use can only be piloted by two peoples per robot, one boy and one girl. girl. Hiro is such a boy, a rather quiet boy, but he is not able to pilot the robot. And since piloting robots is the only reason to live for children in this world setting, he is kind of in an existential crisis. That's where 02, this chick and probably waifu of the season for many people, comes in, who character-wise is mischievous, doesn't give a damn about lot of things, is kind of proactive and is attracted to Hiro, and they do attempt to pilot a robot later. She, other than Hiro, is excellent at piloting robots, but is also known as the partner killer, as each of her partners mysteriously died after 3 battles in the robot together with her. And she also got these horns growing out of her head, so most of the children consider her dangerous. There are enough other characters, of which the most important one is probably this girl, Ichigo, who is kind of a childhood friend of Hiro and has a crush on him. By the way, when fighting in a robot, the boy is called Stamen and the girl Pistol, like in flower reproduction. Together with the pose the two have to be to control the mecha, well, there seems to be a lot of implications, metaphors on sexuality, puberty, coming of age and stuff like that, though for the average viewer it will look like a weird attempt at fan service. And there is fan service. 02 is naked when she meets Hiro for the first time, and later on we also get an obligatory beach episode. And well, even the mechas have boobs. Speaking of the mechas, they look a lot like the ones in Star Driver, I thought. And upon researching, I found out that the same guy designed the mechas for both shows. Another similarity is with Anohana, when we look at the character designs of the figures. Here too, both shows have the same character designer. There's still a lot untold in the show. We can safely assume that the adults are hiding a lot from the children, but we don't know for what reason. Knowing Trigger, there will be definitely some plot twists later on. What I can say so far is that the show is fun and interesting to watch. The typical Trigger mecha mix of action, comedy and dramatic and epic scenes does not get old and is still fun. If you don't mind the kids and robot setting, don't mind some fan service, and you like a rather serious coming of age like story with some indirect metaphors, you should definitely try it. For now, I'd say it's a good to great show, though with a story driven and 2-core title like this, the final verdict can change a lot throughout the series. Next is Ramen Daisuki Koizumi-san, a show about which I don't want to talk for too long because I dropped it recently at episode 7. I'll tell later why. It's kind of a slice of life comedy centered around ramen. 12 episodes. Studio is Studio Gokumi, founded by few former members of Studio Gonzo, and made shows like Kinizo Mosaic, Tsure Children, and the second and third season of Saki. The show is about the titular Koizumi-san, who loves ramen, absolutely loves ramen, doesn't know any pleasure greater than eating ramen. She literally travels around Japan in her free time to eat ramen rather than hang out with friends. And then we have Yu, whose design is really cute, I think, and one of the reasons why I started watching this series. And this Yu is basically obsessed with Koizumi. She always invites her to hang around with her, and Koizumi always rejects her. So what does she do? Just ignore what Koizumi said and follow her anyway. She's almost like a stalker with her behavior. Admitted, it is quite funny at first to see Yu asking Koizumi to be friends and Koizumi cold-heartedly saying no thanks. But honestly, this makes Koizumi neither likable nor relatable, and this does not really fit in a slice of life show. Same with Yu. Her obsession with Koizumi just does not make sense, making her another unrealistic character. Personally, I believe the whole slice of life comedy part of the show is just facade for the ramen, and there's a lot of talk about ramen every episode. So in short, I think it's an okay to bad show. Not really bad because it is watchable and has some good comedy moments, but because of the unlikable and unrealistic main characters, I would ultimately only recommend it to ramen fanatics and no one else. If you want slice of life comedy, there are better alternatives. Now we come to one of my favorites this season. Actually, first I wasn't that impressed with it, but with time it really grew on me. It's Mitsuboshi Colors. It's about 3 grade school kids doing stupid things in their city, so it's a slice of life comedy. 12 episodes. Studio is Silverlink, who also did shows like Kokoro Connect and Non Non Biori. For the three main characters, we have Yui, nicknamed Leader, who does not really act like a leader though and is quite a crybaby. Then we got Satchan, who is the idiot of the group, talks a lot about poop and how she is super cute, and in my opinion this all makes her quite a realistically depicted child character for anime standards. Way more realistic than Zenge from Non Non Buri in my opinion. And the third one is the gamer girl Kotoha. Always wears a hat, plays with her 3DS all the time, but doesn't let that get in the way of playing with her friends. In fact, it's often either Satchan or her who comes up with the stupid ideas and Yui is then kind of dragged along. Kotoha also got some evil streak in her. Loves to step on other people's heads, loves blood in her video games, stuff like that. But later in the show we actually get to know a surprising weakness she got. One of my favorite scenes in the show so far. Other than them, we have Saito, the police officer, kind of the enemy of the group, but they are just playing around. And there's also this guy, nicknamed Oyaji, who got a shop that sells weird stuff and he helps out the kids a lot, gives them toys, comes up with fun games for them, and the kids love him for that. There are some other side characters you can see in this image, but they don't appear that often. The nice thing about this show is really how natural and genuine it is. The kids are cute, but they are also pretty selfish, cause a lot of trouble for others, do things that you'd really get angry at them for, which really makes them realistic. It's not the forced kind of cuteness you see in these usual high school slice of life shows, where teenage girls look super young and act like grade schoolers who are angels. No, here you have three grade schoolers and they look and act exactly like grade schoolers, including the reason why we love and hate kids, and this makes it an exceptional show in my opinion. A small side note, just like the show, I also came to like the ending and the opening a lot with time. It perfectly captures what the series is about in melody, visuals and lyrics, and shows how these kids in their young age view the world. So yeah, for me personally, I'd say it's a great show. I already want a second season. If you like slice of life comedy, you should definitely give it a try. The comedy is pretty good at times and the show is pretty relaxing. If you don't like relaxing shows, better skip it. It is there, he is back, oh yes, next comes my most anticipated show of the season and also my number one favorite, the second season of Saiki Kusuo no Psinan. For those who haven't seen the first season, which aired in 2016, it's a comedy show centered around the main character Saiki, who has every possible supernatural ability you can think of, be it mind reading, teleportation, superhuman strength, even seeing the nearby future, but he just wants to live a quiet life. But thanks to his friends, who he tries to ignore the best he can, he always ends up with ridiculous situations. 24 episodes, which I'm really happy about, and the studio is JC Stuff, my favorite studio, who did shows like Toradora, Food Wars and Azumanga Daioh among others. Apart from Saiki, we have a large cast. First there's his parents, who know about his powers. His dad is kind of an idiot who relies too much on Saiki's powers, and his mom is an idiot too, but also a super cute MILF. Among his friends, of whom none know about his abilities, are Nendo, who got a special chin and is an airhead, Kaido, who got Chunibyo, and Teruhashi, who is the school idol and everybody almost worships her and she herself enjoys this position, so her inner and outer personality are pretty different. Saiki is the only boy who basically ignores her, which irritates her, and she tries her best to make him fall for her just to satisfy her ego, and so involves herself so much with Saiki that you could say she basically got a crush on him, though she is quick to deny that. There are much more side characters in the show and every one of them has some stupid character trait, and the interaction between them combined with Saiki's abilities and deadpan commentary makes for a great comedy that you have to see for yourself. If you like comedy, you like stuff like Gintama, which by the way even got a small cameo in the first episode, definitely check this out. For me personally, it's an awesome, maybe even perfect show. Definitely the show this season where I look forward to the newest episode the most. If you hate comedy or just don't like shows which are just pure comedy without a real story that is progressing from episode to episode, yeah, then maybe you could skip this, though I would still recommend to try it first. Start with the first season though, if you haven't watched it yet. Oh damn, the honey badger is here, the most fearless and badass animal in the world. Let's make a furry show out of it. Oh, looking good. We are talking about Killing Bites, one of the most enjoyable shows this season in my opinion. It's about furry girls and boys fighting each other because rich, influential Japanese businessmen are using this method called Killing Bites to decide things among them. An ecchi action show, 12 episodes. Studio is Leiden Films, who did shows like Terraformers, Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches, and Arslan Senki. For characters, there's Yuya, the typical Vaz male lead, and the honey badger girl, Hitomi, who is very eager to fight. Due to various circumstances, they are participating in the Killing Bites fights, where Yuya is a player controlling Hitomi's movements from the outside, and Hitomi is doing the actual fighting. So it's set up like some board game. There are other comrades like a cheetah girl and a rabbit girl who join later, and lots of enemies representing all different kinds of animals. The fights are accompanied by a narrational commentator who often tells animal facts about the characters right now, explaining and justifying their attacks, presented with beautiful animal drawings. Not hard to notice, but there's a good amount of ecchi in the show, like how the girls are dressed and also some typical cliché scenes. In episode 1 there was actually even a nipple shot, though there haven't been more of them in the following episodes. Alongside ecchi, the show also has a good amount of blood and violence and even gore, and it doesn't hold back with it. The heavy metal soundtrack fits perfectly with the contents of the show, making it a great show for men to enjoy while drinking some beer. I mean really, it got violence, sexy girls, action and a kick-ass soundtrack. I don't need more. Sure, a sophisticated and intelligent series is fine from time to time, but something like Killing Bites is pure entertainment, and I love and respect that. Don't forget that media ultimately is just for entertainment, and many shows fail at this crucial point where Killing Bites basically gets full grades. Apart from the action, there are also a couple of comedic moments, and to be honest, Hitomi and some of the other furries' aggressive Yakuza-like personalities are quite hilarious on their own. It's a pretty honest show. It's obvious that the premise and the story is stupid, and while it does set up this gritty, serious atmosphere, the whole over-the-top way of presenting the fights and the story make it obvious that this show just wants to entertain you and nothing more. If you can accept this kind of mindset and don't mind some ecchi or even enjoy it, you will like this show. Personally, I would say it's a great show since it's just really fun to watch. For everybody else, this will rather fall in the typical anime ecchi trash category, maybe even the why Japan why category because of the furry stuff. Next is Pop Team Epic, the comedy meme anime of the year probably, adapted from a very wacky nonsense Yonkoma manga. 12 episodes, 12 minutes per episode, so it's not a full-length show, and studio is Kamikaze Douga, who is best known for their openings for JoJo and Gatchaman crowds, but they don't really have any full shows of their own. They are mostly involved with music videos and commercials and are probably quite a small studio. They don't even have an English Wikipedia page yet, unlike most anime studios. So, is this show any good? Oh heck it is. The adaptation of the manga is more than perfect. The show got so many crazy ideas in it, and it's definitely one of the most creative shows you will ever see. First off, when the first episode starts, the show trolls you into thinking that you are watching this idol shoujo anime called Hoshiiro Girl Drop, only to be brutally interrupted after 2 minutes by Popko, one of the main characters of Pop Team Epic, and you realize that Hoshiiro Girls Drop isn't a real show and just made up for Pop Team Epic. The gag continues as a running gag where the preview for Pop Team Epic every episode is actually a preview for Hoshiiro Girl Drop. Kinda weird, right? The other main character is Pipimi, by the way. The show is made up of many very short sketches which are filled with lots of anti-jokes and references. For more crazier sketches, we have a segment called Bob Nemi Mimmi, where the main characters are drawn pretty ugly and it really gives a huge what the fuck vibe, which fits the show perfectly. Another weird recurring sketch involves real life video footage about this guy of the animation team who gives us some introduction on the sketch in French, which is then followed by the actual sketch, which is animated in 3D and where the two main characters are actually in France, kind of exploring the country and also talk French. These two last segments I mentioned obviously go beyond what the manga could do on its own and really show what a great adaptation this is and how much effort the small studio put into the show to capture its extreme weirdness perfectly. My favorite moment in the show so far was a real-life footage of a paper theater show done by 2 studio members thrown into the show totally randomly, which was really well done and makes you think like why they put in so much effort into this. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what this studio is putting out here. Another very weird thing is that while every episode is just 12 minutes, if we take the video footage, every broadcast is actually 24 minutes, where the same video footage of one episode is shown twice in a row, the first time with female voices and the second time with male voices for the 2 main characters who are actually female. This is just another factor which adds to the what the fuck atmosphere of this show, which this studio definitely nailed. So what's bad about it? Well, of course you cannot expect any kind of consistent setting in the show, forget about an actual story. Also the jokes are quite hit or miss, since they aren't regular jokes but more like anti-jokes, meta-jokes sort of stuff. If you are from the, I call it internet generation and love memes and stuff, this will be your sort of humor, but for others it might be just way too crazy. For me personally, it's just a good show. I do enjoy it, I love the creativity of the show, but it's not the funniest thing I've seen and I do miss some sort of story. Nichijou and Gintama look completely normal and tame beside this show, I promise you. If this sounds interesting to you, give it a shot. If Nichijou was already too crazy for you, better skip this one. Next is Takunomi, a series about 4 adult women who go to work, live together and in the evening get hammered. 12 episodes but only 12 minutes per episode, and studio is Production IMS, who did shows like Shinmai Mao no Testament, High School Fleet, Jo Kamachi no Dandelion and Inari Konkon Koi Idoha. For characters we have Michiru, the main character who moved to Tokyo from the countryside, Kai, the MILF of the group, Makoto, who goes to college and works part-time at a cafe, and her elder sister Nao, who is the drunkard and idiot of the group. Yeah, they definitely look like they are related. Anyway, each episode is basically about presenting some alcoholic drink, sometimes showing some cocktail recipes and the food you can eat along with it. While some of the drinks are Japanese, some also involve general drinks like red wine or coffee liqueur, so you can actually get some drinking ideas from the show, which is cool. You probably already noticed that the show is pretty similar to Osake wa Fufu ni Natte Kara from the last season. The difference, apart from the longer episode length and different studio, is also the production value, which seems much higher for Takunomi. It looks good enough to be a regular normal length show. I have seen enough full length shows in 2017 which looked much worse than this. I especially like the thin contours used in the show, which contrast with the bright color palette and together make the show look really crisp and great looking at full HD resolution. As a slice of life comedy, it offers quite some funny faces and I'm enjoying it so far, and would say it's a fine to good show. The opening song is also one of the best this season in my opinion. If you like slice of life comedy, it might be enjoyable for you too, though it's definitely not a must watch. Last but not least is another sequel I was excited about. It's Dagashi Kashi's second season. Like the first season, it's mainly a comedy show centered around Japanese candies. We have Kokonotsu, whose father owns a not so successful candy shop and wants him to take it over, and we have Hotaru, a super weird and funny girl with perfect character design whose father owns a very successful candy company. And then we have Saya, another girl with perfect character design who is Kokonotsu's childhood friend and has a crush on him. The second season has 12 episodes, but, and this is the first significant change from the first season, only 12 minutes per episode, which is sad. Studio is not Feel anymore, who did the first season, but Tezuka Productions, who did shows like Blackjack, Onisama-e, and as the studio name indicates, lots of anime adaptations of Osamu Tezuka's works like Astro Boy and Hinotori. I've seen barely anything the studio made, and despite existing since 1968, that's actually 50 years, the studio has made less than 20 TV series so far, which of course doesn't say anything about the quality of the studio, but it's just that it's not that active. The second significant change, maybe due to the studio change, is the changed art style of the series. Well, at first glance it looks pretty similar and familiar and you immediately recognize the characters, but when comparing directly, you see that at least the color palette has somewhat changed and a little how the corners of the faces look. Is it better or worse? Hard to say. I personally think though that it looks good enough. What is also noticeable is that the amount of fan service and sexual innuendos per episode has decreased. A reason for this might be the third change, which is that the second season actually has a progressing story. You might think now, a story? Progress? In my Dagashi Kashi? What the heck? And why use shorter episodes when you want to make a sequel with more story content? Yeah, I share that reaction. The first season was a great, stupid, episodic comedy where each episode some candy was presented alongside with lot of comedy and some fan service by these two gorgeous anime waifus. But in the second season, we have some actual story parts and the status quo actually changes. Two new characters, which are hinted in the opening since episode 1 but appear first in episode 6 and 7, are introduced. There are some story components which I did not really like. Since this is the last entry in this video, I'm going to talk about this minor spoiler now. So if you don't want to hear it and want to go into the second season completely blind, click here to skip to the end of the video or just close the tab. Okay, here it goes. What happens is that Hotaru disappears after 3 or 4 episodes. This development is also present in the manga, so the anime is not to blame. And this is pretty weird, since Hotaru was always a very core part of the show. A big reason to love the first season and the manga is Hotaru's hilarious character and feminine features. And she just disappears. It's a big change from the episodic, comedy-only structure we knew from the first season. Still, it's not like the show gets depressing or anything. There is a little bit of drama there, but most of the time, like 98% of the time, it's still a comedy show and feels like the first season. Life for Kokonotsu continues even without Hotaru, and the new characters are pretty funny even though they can't replace Hotaru. Will she come back? Probably, but I'm still a bit angry about every episode where she does not appear. It's like, you know, wasted potential. Anyway, let's wait till the second season finishes before we say more. So, in conclusion, if you liked the first season and don't mind a break from the episodic format, go watch it. And if you hated the first season, well, skip it. For me personally, it is a good show so far, a good comedy show, and the greatest disappointment for me is neither the different art style nor the increase in story content, but just the shorter length of the episodes. Last thing, I think the opening song is really nice and quite catchy. Piropiri, piropiri. Yeah, that was it. I hope you liked it. Hope you maybe learned some new facts you didn't know before. I know that by the time this video is releasing, the season is already over. It just took me quite long with the editing because I had stuff going on and it's the first time I tried something like this. So yeah, please forgive me for that. Please leave comments to anything you agree or disagree with. I know I did bring up some controversial opinions, so I'd love to discuss about stuff like that in more detail. Yeah, okay, that's it. See you next time.